This was the instant the illusion shattered. For 5 years, the Trump presidency has operated on a simple, unbreakable rule. Reality is flexible. If the president says the economy is booming, then it's booming. If he says he bought Greenland, then he bought Greenland. If he says the courts are rigged, then they are rigged. The sheer force of his personality has bent facts, markets, and political norms to his will. But yesterday in the snow-capped fortified mountains of Davos, Switzerland, and simultaneously on the gritty slush-covered streets of Manhattan, reality finally pushed back. And it didn't just win. It delivered a knockout blow live on global television. If you are watching this, you are witnessing what historians will likely call the Davos disaster. It was the single most humiliating 24 hours in the history of the American presidency. We are looking at a split-screen catastrophe that has shattered the administration's credibility in a way that no scandal, no impeachment, and no election ever could. On the left side of the screen, we saw President Trump standing at the podium of the World Economic Forum on Thursday afternoon. He was there to take a victory lap. He was there to tell the global elite that the American Golden Age had arrived. He stood there under the bright lights declaring the greatest economy in history, and boasting about his master-stroke deal to secure the Arctic. On the right side of the screen, happening at the exact same second, the Japanese bond market was imploding, sending a tsunami of red ink across the monitors of every banker in the room. The Canadian border was shutting down, choking off the U.S. energy supply. And most shockingly, the sheriff of New York City was serving seizure notices on the president's own private residence. The lies didn't just crack, they evaporated. The strong man appeared on the world stage to declare victory, only to have the floor collapse beneath him while the entire global elite watched in stunned, terrified silence. The Davos man, the bankers, the CEOs, the technocrats didn't applaud. They walked out. In this exhaustive, deep dive, we are going to reconstruct the timeline of this nightmare minute by minute. We are going to show you how the Greenland lie fell apart before the president even finished his opening remarks. We are going to analyze the hot mic moment that has Beijing and Moscow laughing this morning. And we are going to explain why the Japan shock made the President of the United States look not like a titan of industry but like a distressed asset. This is the story of how the Trump empire, political, financial, and diplomatic, hit the wall at 5,000 feet above sea level. To understand the magnitude of this disaster, you have to understand the theater. The World Economic Forum in Davos is the Super Bowl of globalism. It is a place Donald Trump hates but secretly craves. It represents the validation of the elite, the smart money. He went there this week with one singular goal: to sell the Trump 2 success story. He wanted to look the CEOs of BlackRock, Vanguard, and JP Morgan in the eye and say, "I was right. You were wrong. Invest in America." The speech was scheduled for Thursday afternoon, the closing keynote address, the graveyard slot, usually reserved for the most important figure to summarize the week. The atmosphere in the Congress Center was already electric, but for the wrong reasons. The Greenland threat from earlier in the week had rattled the Europeans. The silver spike to $95 had rattled the central bankers. The Japan crisis was brewing in the background. But Trump walked out with that signature confidence, the red tie, the slow walk, the thumbs up. He took the podium. He adjusted the microphone, and he started a speech that was clearly written days ago before the world started burning. He began with a claim that made the room gasp, not in awe but in sheer disbelief. He said, and I quote from the official transcript, "My friends, we have secured the Arctic. The deal with Denmark is done. It is the greatest real estate deal since the Louisiana Purchase. We have total control. The American flag will effectively fly over the strategic resources of the North." He was referring to the secret deal regarding the resource leases we discussed in our previous video. He tried to frame a commercial mining partnership as a sovereign conquest. He tried to sell a rental agreement as an annexation. But here is where the Davos disaster began. Usually diplomats are polite. They sit through the lies. They clap politely. They issue a correction later. But the tension in Europe is too high. The stakes are too high. The Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette Frederiksen, was in the audience sitting in the front row reserved for heads of state. And she did something unprecedented in the history of the WF. She stood up. She didn't shout. She didn't throw a shoe. She simply gathered her briefing papers, stood up, and turned her back to the podium. And she wasn't alone. It was choreographed. The German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, or his successor, stood up. The French President stood up. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, stood up in a silent rolling wave. The entire European delegation, representing the largest single market in the world, walked out of the plenary hall while the President of the United States was speaking. Trump faltered. You could see it on the close-up camera. His eyes darted from the teleprompter to the emptying seat. He stammered, I see some people have to leave early. They have planes to catch, very busy people." It was a devastating improvisation. Everyone knew they weren't catching planes. They were sending a message. Within 2 minutes, while the president was still trying to recover, a joint press release hit the Bloomberg Termina Ellis of every investor remaining in the room. It read, "The sovereignty of Greenland is not a commodity. There is no transfer of control. There is only a framework for discussion regarding commercial access. The American president's characterization of this agreement is factually incorrect, legally void, and diplomatically offensive." The phones in the audience started lighting up. A blue light of 1,000 screens illuminated the darkened hall. The CEOs stopped looking at the stage. They started reading the rejection. Trump had lost the room in the first 5 minutes. He was bragging about a victory that the other side had just publicly denied. He looked isolated. He looked delusional. He looked like a salesman trying to sell a bridge he didn't own. But the nightmare was just beginning. Trump, sensing he was losing the geopolitical argument, pivoted to his safe space, the economy. "Forget the politics," he said, sweat visible on his brow. "Look at the numbers. The dollar is king. The stock market has never been stronger. We are the envy of the world. Put your money in America and you will win." At that exact moment, literally as the words "dollar is king" left his mouth, the Bank of Japan lost control of the yield curve. We covered the mechanics of this in our Japan shock video, but the timing here was Shakespearean. It was as if the gods of finance were watching the speech and decided to intervene. The algorithms that run global finance don't care about political rhetoric. They care about liquidity. As Trump was telling the world to invest in America, the yen carry trade began its violent unwind. On the massive monitors at the back of the hall, which usually display the speaker's face, a breaking news ticker from CNBC flashed. BOJ loses yield curve control. 10 YGB spikes. Dow futures plunge 800 points. A murmur went through the crowd. It wasn't a murmur of polite conversation. It was the low, buzzing sound of panic. It's a sound you only hear when money is dying. A Davos man knows what a JGB spike means. It means the cheap money that fueled the Trump rally is gone. It means the U.S. Treasury market is about to freeze. The president paused again. He noticed the distraction. He went off script, trying to regain control. "I see the numbers are moving," he ad-libbed, pointing vaguely at the screens. "That's because they love what I'm saying. The markets are reacting to the strength." It was the wrong thing to say. The markets were crashing. The camera cut to Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. He wasn't looking at Trump. He was on his phone furiously typing. The camera cut to the head of the IMF. She looked pale. The disconnect was absolute. The president was claiming credit for a market move that was actually destroying billions of dollars of wealth in real time. It revealed a terrifying truth to the elite in that room. He doesn't know. They realized that the President of the United States did not understand the mechanics of the global bond market. He didn't understand that a crash in Tokyo meant a crash in New York. He thought all movement was good movement. The Davos discount was applied instantly. In that moment, the global elite decided that the U.S. executive branch was no longer a competent steward of the world reserve currency. They decided that the pilot was flying the plane into a mountain while bragging about the altitude. The speech ended. The applause was polite, scattered, and brief. There was no standing ovation. There was a rush for the exit. But the most damaging moment didn't happen during the speech. It happened after. As the president was gathering his papers, shuffling his notes, and preparing to leave the podium, the audio feed to the international broadcast pool was not cut immediately. "We have analyzed the audio. It is currently trending #1 on X, formerly Twitter, globally. You can hear a senior aide identified by voice. Analysis is likely the chief of staff rush up to the podium. You hear the rustling of a suit. You hear a whisper, urgent and terrified. "Aid, sir, we have to go. The Danish delegation walked out, and we have a situation in New York." Trump, what situation? The bond thing. Aid, no, sir. The sheriff, they served the papers. They are at the tower. And then the president's response. It wasn't a roar. It wasn't a command. It was a question spoken in a tone of genuine confusion and fear. Trump, they took the building, the feed cut. That forward question. They took the building as the epitaph of the administration's image of invincibility. It is being played on loop in Beijing. It is being played in Moscow. It is being played in Thrawn. It captures the essence of the collapse. It captures the realization that the walls are closing in. It captures the moment the Teflon Don realized the Teflon was gone. The internet is calling it the Nixon moment. It is the moment the facade drops, the makeup runs, and you see the fear in the eyes of the most powerful man in the world. Why is this so damaging? Because it confirms the rumors we discussed yesterday. It confirms that the asset seizure is real. It confirms that the president is uninformed until the last minute. And it confirms that his primary concern isn't the crashing stock market or the angry Europeans. It's his own property. Let's contextualize what the aide told him while Trump was in the air flying to Switzerland to brag about American wealth. The New York legal system was dismantling his own wealth. The news broke this morning. Immediate seizure, order executed. Think about the optics of this. The President of the United States just told the World Economic Forum that America is the richest, most powerful nation on earth. And 24 hours later, he cannot pay a $464 million bond to save his own office building. The juxtaposition is fatal. World leaders are not stupid. They run intelligence agencies. They know the state of his finances better than the American public does. They know that if a man cannot SEC your credit from a bank, he is vulnerable. Putin is watching this. He sees a president who is financially desperate. Xi Jinping is watching this. He sees a president whose assets are being liquidated. A desperate man can be manipulated. A desperate man can be bought. Or perhaps worse for Trump, a desperate man can be ignored. The Davos disaster wasn't just a bad speech. It was the moment the world realized the emperor is broke. The headlines in Europe this morning aren't about his Greenland victory. They are Der Spiegel, the foreclosure president land American chaos Trump empire seized, the Financial Times liquidity crisis hits White House, the Times of London humiliation in the Alps, his projection of strength, the core of his political brand, has been stripped away. He isn't the billionaire genius anymore. He is the man getting evicted while trying to give a lecture on real estate, and if the Europeans walking out and the sheriff moving in wasn't enough, we have the third front of this war, Canada. We discussed the "we don't need Canada" trade war in our last video. Trump spent a portion of his Davos speech attacking Justin Trudeau or his successor. He called Canada parasitic. He promised to bring them to heel. He used the stage to bully a neighbor. How did Canada respond? They didn't issue a statement. They issued a blockade. While Trump was bragging in Switzerland, the Canadian government quietly invoked the National Strategic Reserve Act. Uranium blocked, potash blocked, heavy crude diverted to China. This is the ultimate humiliation. The president threatened a trade war to look tough. The smaller country called his bluff and shut down the U.S. economy's supply chain. The energy markets in the U.S. are now pricing in a shortage. The agriculture markets are panicking. Trump looks weak. He tried to bully a polite neighbor and got punched in the nose. And because he is distracted by the asset seizure and the Japan crisis, he hasn't even been able to respond. Affecting the White House press, a briefing yesterday was a disaster. The press secretary was bombarded with questions. Is the president broke? Is the Midwest running out of gas? Did the Europeans walk out? Why did the bond market crash during the speech? There were no answers, only deflection, only anger. I want to go back to the Davos room for a moment because something happened in the Q&A session that has been largely scrubbed from the official WF highlights but was captured by citizen journalists after the speech. Klaus Schwab or the current WF chair sat down with Trump. Usually these are softball interviews. Tell us about your vision. But the mood had shifted. Schwab couldn't ignore the elephant in the room. Mr. President, the moderator asked, The bond market is currently signaling a liquidity crisis in Tokyo that is spreading to New York, with the U.S. deficit at $2 trillion in yields spiking as we speak. How do you plan to finance your government if Japan stops buying? It was a direct, technical, hostile question. Trump froze. This wasn't a question about woke capitalism. This wasn't a question about the media. This was a question about math. He rambled. He talked about tariff. He talked about drill baby drill. But he didn't answer the question. He couldn't answer the question. And the sharks in the room, the Larry Franks, the central bankers, they saw it. They saw a president who was fundamentally unmatched by the economic moment. They realized that the Trump trade buying us stocks because of deregulation was over. The new trade is the survival trade. We are hearing reports of dollarization accelerating at the Davos sidelines. Saudi Arabia and China held a closed-door meeting during Trump's speech. The symbolism is devastating. While Trump spoke to a half-empty room after the walkout, the real power brokers were in the hallway planning a world without him. Back home, the spell is breaking. The total wipeout poll we discussed was the precursor. This weekend is the confirmation. Trump supporters are seeing their 401ks drop, Japan shock. They are paying more for gas, Canada shock, and now they see their hero looking weak, confused, and humiliated on the world stage. The narrative of he is fighting for you is hard to sustain when he is frantically fighting for his own buildings. The martyr strategy has limit. A martyr who goes to jail for his beliefs is powerful. A martyr who gets foreclosed on because he couldn't pay the bill. That's just sad. It breaks the winner archetype. We are seeing the Republican Senate caucus go quiet. Mitch McConnell's successor has an issue to be our statement defending the president. That Bar Islands is deafening. It means they are calculating the cost of cutting him. We are in the third act. The Burr Ows disaster was the turning point. It Burr as the moment the global establishment topped fearing Donald Trump and started eating him, and in politics pity is at all. As we head into the next week, expect lashing out. A humiliated narcissist is the most dangerous force in nature. He might try to escalate the trade wars to regain strength. He might try to fire the Fed chair to fix the markets. He might try to federalize the National Guard to stop the sheriff in New York. But the damage is done. The lies have collapsed. The world saw the books. The world saw the weakness. And the world has decided to move on. The question is, will America move on with them, or are we trapped in the wreckage? Subscribe to the channel. We are monitoring the Secret Service standoff at Trump Tower minute by minute. If the sheriff breaches the perimeter, we will be live. This is history. Don't blink. Let's look at the community notes effect, because this is a fascinating layer of the disaster. During the speech, as Trump claimed the economy was best ever, the WEF live stream chat and X Twitter were flooded with real-time data. Japan yields up 40 bps, US gas prices up 15%. Silver crash, Trump Tower seizure order. The decentralized media dismantled the speech faster than CNN ever could. It was the first time a president was fact-checked by the market itself in real time. The lie didn't have time to travel around the world before the truth got its boots on. The truth was waiting in the lobby. This marks the end of the post-truth era. You can spin a poll. You can't spin a margin call. You can gaslight a voter. You can't gaslight a bond market. Why did the Europeans walk out? It wasn't just about Greenland. It was about the anti-coercion instrument. They wanted to show that the EU is a superpower, too. By walking out, they denied him the visuals. They denied him the applause. They treated him like a rogue state leader. It was a calculated diplomatic insult designed to show an American voter, your president is isolated. He is toxic and he is hurting your standing in the world. And judging by the reaction in Washington today, the message was received. Sources inside the White House say the president has retreated to the resident. He is watching the clips. He is watching the walkout. He is watching the they took the building memes. He is reportedly furious at his staff for letting him go to Davos. Who sent me there? Who set me up? He is looking for a scapegoat. Expect firings on Monday. The Secretary of State, the Chief of Staff. When the king is embarrassed, the court pays the price. But firing people won't fix the bond market, and it won't go. Get the building back. Exhale sharply. This is the Davos disaster, and it is just getting started.